It's time for Reason.
Why would we give the ability for the Supreme Court to come back and say it's not adequate enough and be able to consume as much of the budget as they possibly want to for education, and then for everybody else to get the scraps and the leftovers? Why have we not focused on the Kansas Supreme Court's constitutional amendment to limit the power of the Supreme Court? Why is that not the number one priority and the only priority that we've had when it comes to educational finance?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610, and broadcasting across the entire Mid-American network. What's up? Welcome into it. You finally made it. It's the day we've been looking forward to. It is a Friday. Let's make it a free-for-all Friday. Come on. This is our favorite day of the entire week. It's time for you to blow up the phone lines, talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's your themes, your topics, your discussion on a Friday morning. Let's do it.
Yes, girl.
316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, I'd love to hear from you today. We are all across the board, radio, TV, online. We have the Facebook Live feed up and rolling today as well, facebook.com/1480KQAM. You can comment on there, leave a comment, ask a question, like it, share it onto your own page. Let's blow it up. Let's break that Facebook algorithm that's happening, because I've realized that it has been kind of deterring some of the exposure that we could potentially be getting on Facebook, which is a little frustrating. But nonetheless, we are here and we're making it happen, and we love having you aboard today. 316-721-8255. We got some good weather last night. We'll talk, at least here in the Wichita area, got some good rain. We'll talk about that in just a second. I have to ask, though, it makes you wonder what kind of drugs, what kind of crazy shenanigans are out there when you see a story like this. And I heard this yesterday for the first time, and if you're not in the Wichita area, then maybe you didn't hear this story, but I thought it was quite comical. This one, hat tip to Cake TV. Newton police officer said they took a 24-year-old man to the hospital after he was found attempting to have sex with a car. Yes, officers were called around 11:30 p.m. Tuesday night to report of a naked man under a car. He was attempting to stick his male parts into the tailpipe of the vehicle, according to Lieutenant Scott Powell, told the Kansan. Powell told the suspect they didn't respond to any commands. Officers had to use a taser to subdue him as he was naked underneath a car trying to have relations with that. He was high on some sort of drug. They said officers were then continued to try and have sex with the tailpipe of the car. He would not listen to commands or anything. They ended up having to tase him. He was so impaired we could not take him to jail. He was taken to the emergency room as a result of his quote-unquote odd behavior due to a 0.35 blood alcohol level and possible drug use. There it is. Alcohol, drugs, being involved in this. It makes you really wonder what type of gender confusion is really happening in society today if we think that, I mean, we do call cars female names. Hello, Lucy. My car's name is Lucy. That's what I named my car. I named that as soon as I got my car because it was the most technically advanced car that I had ever had. And at that time, the movie Lucy had come out about the female who, had the drug be ingested in her, and she ended up getting really, really smart and using, more percentages of her brain. And it was kind of the technologically advanced kind of individual, technically advanced movie. And when I got my vehicle, it was really technically savvy at that time. So I named my car Lucy. You always name your car a female name. Now, trucks, you can kind of do both of them. I've heard them been called both female and male names. But if you are having a car, then, usually it's kind of a sexy kind of thing. You like your car. So it really takes this whole gender neutrality and gender confusion to a whole nother level if we feel completely attracted to a car. Just saying. I mean, this may fall into not only the whole drugs and alcohol thing, but may fall into the whole gender confusion and gender dysphoria that we end up having, because you know what, he couldn't make it and score with many other women, so he had to take it to the next level that still had a female name, and apparently that would have been all right. I found that as a perfect way to start the show on a Friday because it shows the insanity of what we have to deal with on a daily basis sometimes. And I'm not judging in any way. It's sad that someone would be that high up on drugs or that high up on alcohol and doing something really crazy and stupid like that. I mean, when you wake up the next morning and you say, what did I do? When some of your male body parts are covered in grease and dirt and oil, then it makes you really second guess on what you're going to be doing the next time when you try and consume one of these drugs or that much alcohol. Just saying. I don't know. 316-721-8255. We got a heck of a lot of rain yesterday, and it was really nice. I know the farmers are digging this. They're eating it up. We got close to an inch here in the Wichita area as of yesterday. We had a little pow with some lightning and thunder just briefly, but it was a quick little storm. It moved in. It moved out. I don't know if you got that on the western part of the state or not, but it was nice. It was really nice, and it makes you really wonder when we live in a society right now, we live in a time where there's not a whole lot of common sense or reason that happens in society, and that's really my job, is to try and use common sense the best that I know how to, or at least try and acknowledge that there's common sense somewhere, or at least try and expose where the common sense could be needed. Then we have opportunities to actually see whether we actually do or not. And I'm wondering how many people, when it rains really hard like that, we had the flash flood warning yesterday because everything was rising, and in low areas there was a lot of water and there's a lot of movement to the water, and it could have potentially maybe flooded some vehicles, or it could have flooded maybe some people's homes. Luckily, if you remember last year, our house had some basement issues that would get a lot of water in there every time it would rain. We haven't had an issue now. We got it fixed. It was taken care of, and it's all fantastic. But it makes you wonder sometimes that while it's raining and we're starting to see the floods happen and we're starting to see the water levels rise, and people begin to panic because there's an issue or a problem, what their proper response is to the issue at the time. If it's raining and you start seeing water starting to come into your house, or you see it start flooding your backyard or your front yard, is the proper response to grab a bucket and begin to try and get the water and try and haul it off while it's still raining? No, that's not the appropriate response. It's kind of a pointless thing. It's kind of not addressing the major issue, right? If it's raining, the water level's rising, you're using a bucket, or you're using something, or you're using many towels or something to try and get the water out before it actually gets into your home, or before it gets any closer to your home, or before it gets to your car and it floods out your car, whatever the case is a bucket really going to do anything? Is a towel really going to do anything when you're out there in the middle of the rain as it's still downpouring? Is that going to help? No, it's kind of a completely pointless project to have, right? It kind of goes against the grain, and you're not addressing the major issue. And we've seen that when it came to the state legislature. We've seen this when it comes to many government decisions, to where we never address the real issues that we're seeing today. And I was as I was driving home yesterday, and I was seeing all the puddles and all the big standing water, and where the drainage areas are that maybe backed up a little bit, and everybody freaking out about all this. It really makes you think: do you address the minor issue to feel like you're actually doing something to contribute, or are you realizing that there's a bigger issue here, and that sometimes the small things are not really necessarily important, or even going to be viably possible at the time, until you address the major issue? Putting the Band-Aid over an issue when you need to actually be going in for surgery. And it really drove it home when I saw the story that I've been holding on to this week, because I didn't know whether to laugh at it, whether to yell at it, whether to just shake my head at it. I don't really know. Coming out of California, as you know, the homeless population increasing dramatically in the state of California, and especially in Los Angeles, where now they're having homeless may get mobile showers in the LA metro stations. And as I was watching the rain come down yesterday, and I was thinking of people looking at the water, creeping closer up to their homes, looking at the big puddles on the side of the road, worrying about you flooding out your vehicle if you try and drive through it, looking at some of the way that people panic about minor issues sometimes, it really makes you think about something like the homeless population in LA, and you say, wait a second, we have a homeless population. Instead of addressing the issue of homeless people and the increasing number of homeless people because of maybe the cost of living out there, or maybe because of the economy, or maybe because of high regulations, or maybe because of high taxes, or whatever the case may be, that instead of addressing the issue of the homeless population, that we should put a Band-Aid on it, and we should start getting mobile showers in our metro station so the homeless people can actually take showers. And this is, by the way, being worked on by numerous different agencies across the entire state of California. Agencies that operate public transportation in the county are considering putting showers in or near some of the train stations in an effort to promote good hygiene. Can we play it, please?
It's your Pinko Flaming Commie Corner.
You would think that we would actually have a little more common sense when it came to this type of issue. I hope that when we look at this, is, by the way, one of the elected officials in LA. I hope that when we look at this issue at first start, it's about the humanitarian issue, in my opinion, because we do have a very diverse population that uses our rail and bus services in our hubs. Metro stations, Metro Director and Los Angeles County Supervisor Hilda Salas told BOR members, you have a diverse population that uses the train and bus services and the stations. If you're using the number of, if you're talking about diversity in the sense of numerous different homeless people using it, along with people that actually use it to transport themselves to work and from, then I guess you're right. But you have a homeless problem, not a hygiene problem. Can we get that straight, please? So we're going to put in mobile showers. And I don't know, am I being too crass? Am I being too careless, too hate-filled, too angry because of the fact that I apparently hate homeless people, and the fact that I actually don't want to put in mobile showers as opposed to actually take care of the homeless population itself, and wonder why we have so many people living on the streets of LA, why there's such a large homeless population in the state of California, instead of saying, hey, let's just put in showers so we can promote good hygiene. If you're going to be homeless, at least smell good. The priorities of Democrats in California. Lots to come up today. Today also being the last day of the legislative session in Kansas. We'll talk about that as well when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
The Voice of Reason, 24 minutes past the hour. What's happening on a Friday morning? It's a free-for-all Friday. It's open lines to you, whatever's on your mind. We got a lot to get to today. The last day of the state legislature in the state of Kansas, really. They sign off tomorrow. Will they be back for a special session later after the Supreme Court decides, after, the utopian, tyrannical black robes tell them they have to come back because, well, that's just what they do. Oh, man. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Plus, they did stay up way late last night. The Senate voting on a tax bill and a budget bill that one coming out of the House, one coming out of the Senate. That was at about midnight last night. We'll see if we can't get a legislator on this morning to chat about some of the details of both the budget and the tax bills that are floating through the last day. The ramification, we told you. The Fast and Furious, last day, last minute, last thing that they can do, and they'll do it. That's not going to be the best bill in any way, shape, or form. It's not going to be ideal. They're going to ruin a whole lot of things, and then they're going to go back next session after the election and say, well, now that you voted me in, I got 2 years, and I can do something else really, really stupid, so that way you'll forget all about it by the time that I go and try and run for re-election again 2 years after that. 316-721-8255. I want to wrap up this discussion about like homeless in Los Angeles and the idea that we're not addressing the major issues. And this is really a prime example of what's happened when we just seem to forget about how to actually address proper issues. We don't want to. We don't want to address the real issues. We want to try and pretend. We want to try and use the politics. We want to try and build a scarecrow and attack the scarecrow because that's the way government works. Name one thing. If you're a progressive, if you are a liberal, a progressive, a Democrat that actually believes that government is the answer in many cases, whether it's the mandatory jobs or the guaranteed jobs that the government can provide for you if you're maybe unemployed, or if it's the universal health care where health care can actually fix a lot of things. If you believe government can fix it, name one thing in the entire history of the nation or the history entire of any nation where government came in and actually solved a problem. They try to solve problems. They take over industries saying that they will solve problems, But then we end up having those issues of that same issue or that same industry as long as government's still involved in it. But then they never release their power. So the question I have for you today is name one thing, if you can, on the progressive side of the aisle where they have actually solved something. The government taking over an industry, taking over a business, taking over an industry, taking over a mindset, and going in, and it actually gets solved. I'd like to hear from you on that. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Line number one. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Nick.
Nick, what's going on, my friend?
Well, I had to sneak this in here. I missed the first little part of it, but I heard part of it is the personal hygiene and the showers. I don't have an answer to your question necessarily, but one of the first documents, and I just got out of the shower, by the way, one of the first documents that I got when I first entered into emergency services was a document about the quarantine laws. And so maybe there is a reason for this. Instead of quarantining people, they wanted to make sure that they quarantined the possible disease outbreak that could happen from people not having good personal hygiene. That might be a stretch. I don't know, but you brought it up.
I'm glad you brought that up because it actually is part of why one of the excuses that they've tried to use for the reason why they're putting these showers in here to the hygiene and mobile shower stations provide, quote, effective solutions to promote hygiene in addition to preventing the spread of infectious diseases. So as we're seeing a massive increase in the homeless population across the LA area, LA County, and Los Angeles City itself, they're worried about infectious diseases being spread because there's such a number of homeless people that are just sitting around and not taking actual showers, and there's diseases being floated around. So they are concerned about that. But again, isn't that the bigger issue, the fact that we have so many homeless people that are not taking showers and that have no way to actually take care of themselves, that we need to address the fact that we have massive amounts of homeless people, not just giving them a shower so that way they can take a shower and not spread diseases around.
It all goes back to the breakdown of the family, the religious aspect, and also kudos to the Kansas Legislature House for passing the Kansas Adoption Protection Act, and I hope it gets passed in the Senate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I'm glad you brought that one up, Nick. I appreciate that very much. You're right. It's the breakdown of the family. It's the breakdown of society. It's the fact that we don't actually take care of one another and that we just don't care anymore. Well, not everybody, obviously, because you and I care, but there's a lot of individuals that actually just don't care anymore. They just go about their business and whatever, and we see the economy going up. The government feels like they're taking care of issues by raising taxes, by raising regulations, and that's going to solve everything. We have a massive number of homeless people in L.A., and instead of saying, hey, we got a massive number of homeless people in L.A., they say, look, there's a massive number of homeless people down there. Let's give them showers so that way they're not spreading diseases everywhere. This is the program that would be collaborated with the L.A. County's Office of Homeless Initiative. They have a homeless initiative. They're doing a very good job about that, right? Department of Public Health, Department of Public Works, and other relevant departments. The pilot program, if adopted, would first roll out at the Westlake, MacArthur Park, and North Hollywood stations. There you go. Trying to stop the spread of infectious disease. All right, you homeless person, you can stay homeless. Just take a shower, will you? Well done. We really care. It's the progressives caring so much about everybody else.
There's no easy way out. There's no shortcut home. There's no easy way out. Giving in can't be wrong, no. There's no easy way out. There's no easy way out. There's no shortcut home. There's no shortcut home. There's no easy way out. There's no easy.
Andy never shies away from a fight.
Just you try it.
Oh, I'll try it.
Just you try it.
You'll feel it when I try it.
I'd like to see you have at it.
Would you now?
And now's your chance to jump in the ring.
Are you insane?
Give Andy a call at 316-721-8255. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into the Voice of Reason. It is a Friday, the Free for All Friday, continuing right along, 36 minutes past the 6 a.m. hour already. Can you believe it? It's craziness. How fast this goes on by. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, it is a free-for-all for you, so whatever's on your mind today, it can be topical, non-topical, it does not matter. Today's the day where you can change the topic to whatever you want to. The rest of the week, usually I have the topics and the themes of the day, but today, that's not the case, and you can really talk about whatever you want to on the show. 316-721-8255. We do have the Facebook Live feed up and rolling as well. You can leave a comment, ask a question. You're more than welcome to do so. In the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to have Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio. He's going to join us as we talk about today, the kickoff of the NRA convention that's happening down in Dallas, Texas. It's not too terribly far if you want to head down for the weekend. Might be kind of fun. I wish I'd be able to go. Not going to be able to make this one. But Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, he will join us in hour number 3. Let's shift gears a little bit. Today, as you know, is the last day of the legislative session as the House and the Senate. They are wrapping things up. And I tell you what, do you want to know the true definition of insanity? Do you want to know the true definition of stupidity? This is it. What's the definition they say of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. We have some good news and some bad news coming out of the legislature. Actually, a little bit of good news and a lot of bad news. Let's just put it that way. And I'm the eternal optimist, as you know. I always try and find the nice optimistic light of what's going to happen. But I'm a little concerned. I'm very frustrated. I'm very angry. And we can thank again the moderate Republicans and the progressive Democrats that have actually been able to make this happen. First off, the Kansas legislature took a step towards wrapping up the annual session Thursday by approving a new state government budget that dramatically increases overall expenditures and features a 5% raise for thousands of state employees. That, according to the Topeka Capital Journal. They increased spending, and we knew they would. It would be close to another $1 billion. They increased spending at the statewide level as they wanted to increase for education funding. They increased it probably for the judicial branch, because, you know, the Supreme Court and all the judges, they all need more raises. So we increased educational funding for the judicial branch. We increased spending probably for the highway projects. We increased funding for really across the board. The bipartisan vote came out of the House last night, 98-23, meaning it wasn't even close. 98-23 for the budget deal that was reached with the Senate, which then adopted the bill 26-14. So both went through. It's going to the governor. It would spend $7.07 billion from the state's general fund for the fiscal year starting July 1. $7.07 billion. The money's going out the door very quickly, according to Jim Ward. And for once, I agree with him very much so. It's going very quickly out the door, making it harder to do business next year because they want more money next year. And if we increase all our spending now, then we're not going to have any left because they're going to have to raise taxes. They're already going to have to raise taxes just for that because we already, did a 5% increase for salaries across the board for thousands of state employees. Why? I'm curious why. Do they need it? Is it mandatory? Are they falling behind? When was the last time you in the private sector, did you get a raise anytime lately? Hopefully, maybe you did a little bit when it comes to because of the Trump tax cuts, and maybe your employer actually gave you a little bit of a raise. Good, then you deserve it. But 5% raise across the state for thousands of state employees. Representative Troy Waymaster, Bunker Hill, Republican and the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, said significant element of the Senate Bill 109 was the money for significant raises for state workers. There are flat 5% raises for state employees who weren't included in the 2017 pay adjustment law. State workers given a 2.5% pay hike last year by then Governor Sam Brownback are scheduled to receive another 2.5% increase. In addition, the bill contains a 5% adjustment for corrections staff and 2% raises for judges. That 2% raises for... Now, I agree with the corrections facilities and the corrections staff workers. We know that they need some, as we heard throughout the year last year about the individuals working extremely long hours and not making a heck of a lot of money. It excludes the staff of state universities, the Kansas Highway Patrol, Kansas Bureau of Investigations, and members of the Kansas legislature. So we're seeing increases across the board on that one. So there's one side of the story, is that we've now increased the budget up to $7.07 billion. We're giving increases across the board. And then, of course, we had the $600 million in educational funding, along with some other things as well. The question I had, why judges? Why? Is there a reason that we all of a sudden feel that the judges need more money? I mean, I guess if we're doing well as an economy and we're growing and we have money sitting in the reserves and we're actually paying things on time and we're not worrying about squeezing the budget and we don't have one side of an industry or one industry like education that's really consuming the entire budget of the state economy. If we didn't have any of that stuff going on, then I would say, sure, why not? But it's got to be done in the appropriate times at the appropriate place and for the right reasons, not just because. So that's one side of the aisle. On the other side, then we see some potentially good news, but it puts us back in the same situation of what we've been in for a long time. The 2018 session put another finishing touch on the session by Friday morning by sending Governor Collier a bill advocating for the belief that state workers have the right to foster care. That's some more good news. And Nick brought this up with the foster care issue and adoption place organizations to make decisions about children based on sincerely held religious beliefs. That's good news. That's good. We can say hooray. We can congratulate. We can say that we actually moved something positive in there. We have not seen anything yet when it comes to the Second Amendment bills. We have not seen anything when it comes to the constitutional amendment, but at least we got foster care done. Then we see this one. Kansas State, Kansas Senate, shortly after midnight, endorsed a sweeping tax reform that would lower state revenue significantly. I like how they have to throw that in there. This one, according to the Topeka Capital Journal as well, it's not the fact that you get to keep your money, but it's the fact that the state loses money. Oh, man. Oh, the state's losing money significantly and alter policy just 1 year after raising taxes to end the year of budgets woes. Days after increasing tense negotiations between the Senate and the House produced a compromise that allows Kansans to itemize at the state level while taking a larger federal standard deduction on income taxes. It allows businesses to return offshore profits without paying a penalty. Senator Tom Holland, Democrat from Baldwin City, said the tax plan would blow up the budget. The legislature passed earlier Thursday night, which increases state spending. So as we're increasing spending, we're lowering your taxes a little bit. And lowering taxes is a good thing. But isn't that the exact same problem that we went through in 2012 when we dramatically started lowering taxes? We started going to the path to zero. We started lowering your income taxes, and then we increased spending. Have we not learned a single thing in any way, shape, or form? Wouldn't this still be the same example of stupidity or the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result? We are increasing spending while we begin to lower your taxes. And by the lowering your taxes, I mean just enough to where you can actually have more things to write off on your state taxes. That's all it means. If you itemize, then you might be able to get a little more tax break. If you're not itemizing, then you're just really going to be doing the same thing. This really does nothing for the state. We're not lowering revenues, or not really we're lowering revenues. We're not lowering tax rates. We're not lowering sales tax on food. We're not lowering property tax rates or mill levies. We're not lowering income tax rates. We're not lowering gas tax rates. We're not lowering cigarette tax rates. We're not lowering any of it. All you get to do is write off more on your state taxes, which is good. But have we not learned anything? Have we not learned from our stupidity before by saying that, we're going to increase spending while we lower your taxes? And then we wonder why we all automatically run into a deficit. And then we start saying that we're going to be bankrupt. And then we're going to be shutting down the schools. And it's all going to be this big scare tactic. And then we're going to have to raise taxes dramatically again. Guess what? I guarantee you, we called it. We said this was going to happen. This is the last day of the legislative session. And come the 2019 session for the 2-year budget cycle, this is what we get to look forward to, is by having a budget that's going to be running into a debt again and a deficit, and we're going to be short on funds, and then we're going to be struggling. Crazy how that happens. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Morning, it's Deacon.
Deacon, what's happening, my friend?
Oh, it's a beautiful day. Hey, I wanted to go back to yesterday when you were talking about the Boy Scouts.
Sure.
I've done some research because I saw the Boy Scouts just going crazy for the past couple of years. And there is another organization called Trail Life, which is what the Boy Scouts used to be.
That's right. And I've heard some different organizations of kind of alternatives for both the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts where there's some that actually try and hold to some of those values. But it is kind of frustrating because I know the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, by the way, are both kind of the bigger ones of right now where the majority of the population likes to usually go to, and that's usually the biggest name ones. But there are some other options out there, are there not?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I was a scout. I was a Cub Scout. I was a Weeblo. I was a Boy Scout. I was working my way up. And then I got my ears pierced.
Right.
That was unacceptable to the Boy Scouts at the time because it did not fit with what a man was supposed to look like.
Sure.
You're supposed to carry yourself. You're supposed to, not, there was no tattoos. You couldn't have your ears pierced.
Sure.
You're supposed to dress in a respectable manner, and it was trying to teach boys how to be young men. And now they've been neutered, and I guarantee you, if you hooked the pulley up to my grandfather right now, he'd be turning over so fast in his coffin that he could power a small town.
Sure. No, you're right. I mean, we used to have that back in the day. I mean, remember the days I've been watching at home every night as we go to bed. We watch the do you remember the Dick Van Dyke Show? You ever seen that? I mean, I used to watch. We've been watching that going to bed every single night, and just the fact that the guys even would wear just their suits as they were at home, and they would have a different suit with a sweater over their suit with a still tie as they're sitting at home relaxing, reading the newspaper. Like, people don't do that anymore, and we don't really hold ourselves to that same kind of level or standard when we try and be presentable to individuals, even if it's just our wife at home.
No, it's the majority of people walking around now look like they're homeless. Even people who were going out who didn't have a job. You look at pictures of the 1920s and 30s.
Sure.
We were the Great Depression. They were still wearing suits and hats and overcoats, and they looked nice.
That's a great point. Deacon, I hate to cut you off, my friend. Got to take a break, but you're absolutely right. And, of course, I'm saying that while I'm wearing a T-shirt today for Friday on TV and on radio. Just it shows the difference in times, doesn't it? This is The Voice of Reason. Got to wrap up here. Hour number one. Wrapping up in just a minute. Hey, welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number one on a Friday. It is a free-for-all Friday. Welcome into it. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. As always, today's not just a Friday, not just a free-for-all Friday, but it is a fried chicken Friday. Inman Harvest Cafe, 112 South Main Street, downtown Inman, just north of Hutch, is they're enjoying their fried chicken Friday, starting off the morning. Katie's on the line with us. Katie, breakfast kicking off. You guys are having fun already, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, we always have a lot of fun. Breakfast already. We got potatoes, we got eggs, we got sausage, everything.
With some fried chicken. I love it. Well, the fried chicken on the way here very soon. I got to ask real quick, last week you guys had the big car show and a secondary fried chicken Saturday. How'd that go last weekend?
Oh, my gosh, it was total chaos here, but it was awesome.
Very good.
We had a record number of cars, entries, I guess, because some of them were tractors and motorcycles and stuff. And then because we had 176 entries in our car show, and that blew our record way out of the water. And then we had a record number of customers here. So
I love it.
Also awesome.
I love it. Well, good. That keeps you guys busy. That's really good to hear. Mm-hmm. Today is the Fried Chicken Friday. We got the buffet from 11 to 1 o'clock, the big buffet from 5 to 8 o'clock tonight. What's on the agenda for the buffet today?
So today we're going to have a pulled pork that's got some garlic, it's got onions, it's got fresh jalapenos, so not spicy but flavor, okay, that we've put over there, and then slow roasted that just like we slow roast our roast beef.
Sure.
So we're going to have that. Then we're going to have baked beans. We're going to have chicken enchiladas. And then we're going to come up with one other thing that it's so early this morning, I'm not sure what that is.
It's going to be a surprise. It'll be a
tuned.
surprise
It'll
delight.
be a surprise, yeah.
Very good. Plus, we got to remind everybody that 5 to 8 o'clock, that big buffet tonight, you get that free slice of pie. You need to grab it as soon as you walk in the door, and it goes by quicker than you can imagine. So what kind of pies do you have lined up for us today?
Today we've got coconut cream, we've got peanut butter cream, we've got banana cream. That one we don't have very often. Sour cream raisin, apple custard, and your favorite maybe because you've never tried it, but bumbleberry.
Bumbleberry.
So that's the strawberries, blueberries, apples, rhubarb, and raspberries. So.
See, that just sounds so good. I love it.
I know.
I love it. You
It's
got to
my
get
fave.
It got the fave. And then, of course, you had the roast beef tonight as well, correct?
That's right. Yes, always the roast beef on Friday evening. So it is slow roasting in there with that pork. It's in the same oven. So it's kind of a good smelly smell.
A good smelly
here.
smell. I love it. It's
Smelly smell.
So I tell you what, you just walk in there and your tummy starts rumbling. The wheelbarrows to wheelbarrow you out of the restaurant afterwards is sold separately. Make sure to get those and have those lined up after you're done eating. Inman Harvest Cafe, it's the Fried Chicken Friday, baby. Check them out, 620-585-6925, or visit them 112 South Main Street in downtown Inman. Katie, you guys are having a lot of fun. I can sense it. I can smell the food already.
Yes.
Enjoy, and we'll check in with you here in a couple hours.
All right, that sounds great. Talk to you then.
Always a pleasure. I appreciate that very much. Brought to you by the Inman Harvest Cafe right here on The Voice of Reason. Rick Everett in studio. We have a minute and a half. Do we have time, or do we want to wait till after the top of the hour?
Well, we'll just hit some headlines real quick. Kansas farmers expected to bring in the smallest winter wheat harvest in nearly 3 decades, that amid ongoing drought conditions. Weather conditions have stunted wheat fields across the state. Participants in the Wheat Quality Council's Winter Wheat Tour this year say Kansas growers will likely harvest about 243.3 million bushels. Newton police took a 24-year-old man into custody after he was attempting to have sex with his car. He had a blood alcohol content of 0.35.
I mentioned that earlier. Do you think that falls into the whole gender dysphoria thing that we're going through today?
You know, I think it just falls under the you're more think than people drunk you are.
Ah, yeah, well, that works. But I mean, you do call your car female names, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's the Kenny Chesney, do you think my tractor's sexy theory or something? Have a good one. Have a good Friday.
There it is, making that happen right there. That's Rick with the news.
And that's the news.
Short, sweet, and simple on that. We'll get it back in here before the end of the show for another news update. 316-721-8255. When we come back in hour number 2, we got a lot to discuss. We do have, we'll continue on this discussion. The last day of the legislative session. We'll see if we can't get a legislator on to talk about the tax and spending bills that came out. Again, another spending increase, major spending increase at the statewide level with a potential lowering of taxes, which could be good. But again, we're going down the same road of what we've done before. The definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting something different to actually come out of this. We're going to run into a shortfall again, which just gives another opportunity to raise massive taxes come next year. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason, hour number 2, coming up in a minute. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
Why would we give the ability for the Supreme Court to come back and say it's not adequate enough and be able to consume as much of the budget as they possibly want to for education, and then for everybody else to get the scraps and the leftovers? Why have we not focused on the Kansas Supreme Court's constitutional amendment to limit the power of the Supreme Court? Why is that not the number one priority and the only priority that we've had when it comes to educational finance?
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, welcome into The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGBT TV, channel 2610. And all across the World Wide Web, the interweb. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier, and it's great to have you along today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. It's a Friday. It is a free-for-all Friday. Meaning, whatever's on your mind, bothering you, troubling you, the way that we always work, you get to run the show today. You get to set up the discussion because it's all about you today. Come on.
Baby. Yes, girl.
316-721-8255. We can shoot me a message on Facebook, facebook.com/1480KQAM. We got the Facebook Live up and rolling right now. You can leave a comment, ask a question, does not matter, whatever you want to do on there. I want to get into, and we're trying to get a legislator on at the bottom of the hour to give us an update on the votes that happened last night as we're wrapping up the session. The state legislative session is today, and they'll be. I think they close out officially tomorrow, but today's really the last day for them to vote on many of the issues and get them to the governor's desk before they leave town for good, at least for now. And I got to say, this is probably one of the most absurd, wasteful, ridiculous, hypocritical, lack of substance legislative sessions I have seen since I've been in Kansas. And I know that we had those sessions every once in a while, but this session has been completely blown out of proportion. This session has been completely worthless because we have not gotten anything of what we needed to get done. We had leadership that actually came out with a good idea and said that we would not even touch legislative education funding until we actually address a constitutional amendment. Did that happen? No. They had their leadership actually hold strong for, a day, and then the story came out the very next day. You know what? Instead of that, we're actually going to address the educational funding issue, and then we'll do the constitutional amendment. And now we hear, we just don't have time. We're not going to do it this year. That was the number one issue that we went in wanting to address this year. The number one issue that we were supposed to address this year, and it didn't happen. We didn't think that the Second Amendment issues would actually be coming up this year, but they ended up coming up a lot. Now, the good news is that we were actually able to defend our legislation of our current laws for the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms in the state of Kansas. We were able to defend, but we weren't able to advance. It's the last day, and we still have not passed the legislation that allows 18-year-olds to be able to purchase a firearm. Hasn't happened yet, or at least to get a concealed carry permit. As we accept other people's permits around the surrounding states that may be 18 years old, our very own 18-year-olds in the state of Kansas are not able to purchase a firearm. That's a problem. We had the issue of lottery and gambling. Let's start off with gambling. Gambling issue. The Race for Kansas, we talked with them on the air a couple weeks ago, talking about trying to lower the sales tax rates on gambling for horse and dog racing to make it equal to the sales tax rate of gambling at a casino. And, of course, the special interests apparently got their greedy little hands in there, didn't want that to happen because we don't want gambling money to go elsewhere than other just the casinos that are currently benefiting from it. Didn't happen. Why we're not allowed to do dog and horse racing in this state? Because of extremely high tax rates where no one's actually going to want to do it. Completely absurd. Absolutely absurd. We saw a few good things come out of the session, which I guess was nice. Authorizing lottery ticket sales through vending machines. That was proposed by Governor Stan Brownback a while ago. The Senate on Thursday passed that legislation, so that's at least moved forward a little bit with the authorization to allow lottery ticket sales to be through vending machines. Great. Okay. I guess we can chalk that up as a victory, but not necessarily the biggest, hardest hitting issue, but at least we did something. We were able to now sell alcohol at 6 a.m. in the morning. Great. Now I feel really, really good. So that way, if I work third shift, if you work third shift and you're getting off and you want to go have some breakfast/dinner and you want to have an adult beverage after a long night of work, all the power to you. Why we had an absurd law like that in the first place boggles the mind, but now we're able to do that. Great. I guess we can chalk that up as a victory. We did see some good news come out last night when it comes to sending a bill to Governor Jeff Collier after both chambers did vote on this. The Senate voted 24-15, that one at 2 a.m. in the morning, and the House being able to vote on that one as well when it comes to the adoption. And affirmed the state law, the right for foster care and adoption placement organizations to make decisions about where children go based on religious beliefs. The Senate voted 24-15 shortly after 2 a.m., according to the Topeka Capital Journal, for the bill designed as a legal shield for faith-based agencies that receive state tax dollars, despite declining to place children with same-sex couples or other family groups in conflict with the church's teachings. After 2 hours of anguished debate on Thursday night, the House voted 63-58, a little bit shorter margin for the Senate Bill 284. The Republican governor said he would sign this. Quote, Catholic charities and other adoption agencies are key to the fabric of our community. I look forward to signing this bill because it increases the opportunity for needy children to find loving homes. So that's good news. Great. We chalked up one really successful bill that happened on the last Fast and Furious movement of finishing up the session this year. That's good news. Small good news comes out of the fact that we're able to start writing more off on our taxes. Days of increasing tense negotiations between the House and the Senate produced a compromise bill that allows Kansans to itemize their taxes at the state level while taking a larger federal standard deduction on the income tax. It allows businesses to also return offshore profits without paying a penalty. So you get to write more off on your state taxes. Small good news. On the bad side of that, though, again, the definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result, and we're becoming very wary of this. Yes, it's good news. We get to write our taxes off at the state level, but we do that while we're also increasing our spending. While we increase our spending, Kansas legislature took a step towards wrapping up the annual session with a bipartisan vote in the House of a 98 to 23 vote for the state budget deal. Also reached with the Senate with a 26 to 14 vote, with a spending total starting in July 1 for the new fiscal year of $7.07 billion. So as we allow individuals to begin to slowly write more off, we didn't lower any rates. Didn't lower any sales tax rate, no property tax rate, no income rates, no sales tax on cigarettes or alcohol or oil or gas or anything of that sort. We didn't lower the sales tax rate or anything, just the fact that you could potentially write more off on your taxes. Now we're going to increase spending again. Didn't we have that same kind of issue, I don't know, a few years ago, 6 years ago, when we signed the 2012 tax reform bill, where we lowered income taxes and we increased spending, and then all of a sudden we said, oh, look, there's a deficit. We're running short on funds. Now, that doesn't mean that we increase taxes to compensate that. That means that we actually need to get our stuff in gear in order to have our legislators be able to fund programs within the means of what tax receipts we're actually receiving. Period. End of story. That's not happening. It's not happening, and we called it. We said this from day number one of the legislative session 2018, that they would not raise your taxes on this one, that they would increase spending, they would give all the money that the Supreme Court wanted for the educational funding bills. They would give all this money to wherever they needed to go. We're going to do a 5% raise for salaries for for thousands of state employees across the state of Kansas. We're going to run into a deficit. They're going to come back and say, well, we had projections really low and our budget's low at that sense because of the monthly projection outlooks that we actually have. We've been seeing tax receipts coming in higher than that, and therefore we're going to be able to offset all of these increase of spending, and it's going to be fine, and we're not going to have to raise your taxes. They get through the new election year come November, and they come back and tell you, knocking on your door and saying, hey, look, guess what? We were able to fix this. We were able to increase our spending, fund what we needed to fund at the state level, and not have to raise your taxes. Once you vote them in and say, oh, good job, you did it, then they come back next January and say, oh, look, we have a shortfall. Oh, look, there's not enough money. Oh, look, we have to raise your taxes again. And they'll do it for their 2-year budget cycle come 2019. I guarantee you this is what's going to happen, because we have not learned our lesson yet in the state of Kansas. It was the big blow up this year. It was the huge tax reform push that we tried to do with so many organizations, with Kansas Policy Institute and with the Americans for Prosperity, and with ourselves here with so many different conservatives pushing and saying we need to do tax reform again. We need to get our spending under control. We need to solve this because we cannot make the same mistake again. And what just happened? The last day of the session, the fast and furious, the voting at 2 a.m. when people are frustrated and want to get the heck out of there. Vote! Good compromise. It's a bipartisan bill. It's a compromise, and we can actually make this happen. So you know what? We're going to raise our spending while we give you more tax write-offs to be able to potentially lower revenues at the state level. Doesn't that make you feel all warm and cozy? Your thoughts on the session, what you thought of this entire session, the good news, the bad news, what you saw coming out of this one. And I guess good news is that we also blocked Medicaid expansion. That was good news, and that was a success story. We've had a few successes. We've had a few big losses. And overall, I chalk this one up as a complete waste of time and a waste of money for this legislative session 2018. Your thoughts on all this and more. Let's go to the phone, shall we? Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Eddie, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. Since it's an all deal on Friday,
sure.
Did you happen to read in the paper or see on the news where there was some high school student in Wichita that was maybe at some kind of an athletic event where he was participating, and one of the opposition players said a word to him in Arabic, and so then he went and complained to the referee. Not only that, he went to the Wichita Eagle Channel 12, Channel 3, and Channel 10, and actually got on one and said, "That guy called me an Arabic name, and that hurt my feelings." Good God, Andy.
Wow.
The other day you had a test for man, and et cetera like that.
Yes.
What kind of a wimp is that? When I was in high school and I did participate in athletic events, hell, I just rolled it off, man. I just rolled it right back. I mean, what in the hell's going on with those people anyway?
They are very emotionally weak, and this was a great opportunity that he saw to potentially see publicity, as he did, going around from media to media. And I did not see this, or I did not read that one. I'll have to read up on that one, because to me, if you're going to complain about something like that, that's a really absurd, stupid thing to complain about.
And these people are also supposed to be terrorists. I mean, good God, how in the hell can you be a terrorist when you wimp and whine about somebody saying something to you? When my oldest son was a senior in high school, he had leukemia, and he was in the hospital, and he was near death several times. Not one time did he ever cry. Not one time did he give up. Not one time did he show weakness. He says, "Dad, we're going to go through this together. Dad and Mom, we're going to go through this together, and we're going to win."
Sure.
And that, now, I raised him. I don't know who in the hell raised this kid. I mean, it's pathetic.
So
it's
wait a second.
laughable.
So it was an Arabic individual calling another kid a name, or it was a kid calling an Arabic kid an Arabic name?
I think it might have been a tennis match or something like that. And the opposition player, which more than likely was a white guy, said an Arabic word to
an Arabic kid.
Tennis.
Okay.
Yeah.
And called him a
so
name.
Then he got all bent out of shape and whipping and whining. And
well, he culturally appropriated him. That was probably the bigger issue. He culturally appropriated him, so that way he was using his own language to him, and therefore it was very offensive, because how dare, as a white individual, be using language that he is not part of the culture of, so therefore he was culturally appropriating him, along with saying a bad name, because you can't trash talk each other anymore anyways.
I just look at my children, and all of my children are strong. It's very strong. Even my girls are strong. One was a police officer, and the other one concealed carry permit holder. But who in the hell's raising these damn Muslim guys? Like the ones up there at that quick shop where they whined about somebody doing something or something. I don't know. It's just.
I tell you, it's amazing to me. It's not just them. It's really anybody in society today. I mean, look at how many white progressives are out there complaining about a cultural appropriation, and that they cry and whine every time that someone says something of. They even refer to him as a male or a female, and look at how weak and sentimental they are about having to go to a cry closet because they can't take a final exam, or someone called them a pronoun.
A cry closet. Do you realize how? Whoops, I better watch my language. Do you realize how just
absurd,
I was in the Marine Corps.
Stupid?
I was in the Marine Corps. I went through boot camp. Do you realize that if we had a cry, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
That's even more laughable. Come on. You had a test last week or earlier this week about being a man.
Yes.
These youngsters, I mean, honestly, once you start turning 15, 16, 17, that's when you really start learning, really becoming a man. And by the time that you turn 18 and cross that 18 and graduate from high school, you are a man, period, because you're eligible for we used to have a draft, but you guys don't have a draft anymore. But anymore, good God, these kids think that adulthood didn't start until they're about 25 or 26.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. You're right. I told you. I mean, the millennials don't even consider themselves an adult until the age of 30 because they're living at home predominantly with student loans, and they don't feel like they have adult responsibilities at that time. Eddie, I appreciate it. We got to take a break, my friend, but you're right. There you go. There it is. I mean, people whining, complaining, and to this Arabic student. I'll have to look up the story during the break here and take a look at it. But again, it doesn't really matter that he's Arabic. It's the fact that we have people complaining because you said a mean thing. Look, if you're competing in sports, if you're competing against somebody, there needs to be some trash talk. There needs to be some hype. There needs to be some excitement. There needs to be some energy there, and you need to do that. Come on, that's why do you think I'm so involved and interested in MMA and UFC fighting? Why do you think that my favorite fighter of all time is Conor McGregor? Because he is the ultimate trash talker. because he will destroy you mentally before he even steps into the octagon to be able to fight you. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Not only is it completely entertaining, but that's the way you're supposed to be in sports. In football, you're supposed to intimidate your opposition to where they don't even want to come onto the field. In baseball, you're supposed to throw a fastball so fast that no one even wants to step up to the plate. Or maybe you're a wild guy like John Rocker back in the day with the Atlanta Braves, to where you're even afraid to walk into the batter's box because you're afraid he's going to hit you or do something crazy. And don't you dare try and charge that mound, because he's going to come after you, and that's not somebody that you want to tango with. That's the way sports is supposed to be, but because he said a name, it's probably more so not just the fact of the name calling, but the fact that he culturally appropriated him by using the language in order to try to intimidate him and attack him, and that was very offensive to him, because today we are the weaklings. We don't have any masculinity, and if we do, then we probably have some form of mental illness. 24 minutes past the hour. This is the Voice of Reason.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker KQAM.
I found the story, by the way, on Cake TV. Hat tip to those guys for the story as of the middle of April 24th, when this came out, of the collegiate high school junior who is a tennis player and ended up having an opponent on the tennis court who ended up saying Allahu Akbar because he was Muslim and trying to go after him in that sense, which, by the way, means God is the greatest in Muslim, or in Arabic, but it's for the Muslim community. When I hear that chant, someone's not speaking Arabic, it's commonly a terrorist slur or something to insult me because I'm Muslim and the way I look. According to the player Gehad, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. There it is. So, should he have said something like that? Well, no, probably not. But, I mean, if he is Muslim and he believes in it, I don't know. I mean, is that offensive? That's up to you to believe. I would just say my response, instead of going to the media and crying, would be to beat him on the court and, rub it in his face a little bit. That would be my response, but I don't know. I guess I'm too masculine for that. Bottom of the hour news coming up.
It's time for some common sense, sanity, and reason.
You can't handle the truth.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Making it happen today on a Friday. It's a free-for-all Friday. What's up? Happy Friday to you at 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, 36 minutes past the hour. We do have a lot of people jumping on to the Facebook Live feed this morning, leaving a lot of comments. We love it. Great. Good morning to you there. Lots to get to today as we've been recapping. Today's the last day of the legislative session before they convene, before they finish up, at least wrap up tomorrow, and finally call out of session again. This year, I think, has been the biggest waste of time as a legislative session I think that we've seen in any other session
That's
before.
A little critical.
No, that's about true. I could have, I could have spent about $30,000 a piece just to go and, not do anything than actually go through this session this year. It's time for Rick with the news. I mean, what did you think? Did you think that we actually got something substantial out of this session this year?
How do I follow that?
Yeah, there you go.
How do I follow that?
Yeah.
Well, so what do you want? What do you want from me? Do you want a news blurb? Do you want a news segment?
Whatever news you got today. I know the news has been hopping.
I've got a lot going on. Well, there's a lot happening.
There is a lot happening. It is that time of year to where shenanigans begin happening for the summertime. I love guys that, are apparently gender confused when it comes to their vehicles. And, yeah.
Oh, my word.
I guess if you're going to the tailpipe's the place to do it. It just makes you wake up in the morning and say, what did I do?
Well, there's a whole lot of that going on. Well, let's get to some news highlights here. After 84 years, the Wichita Wingnuts announced yesterday that it would be the last season for Lawrence Dumont Stadium. The final season for Lawrence Dumont announced yesterday by the Wingnuts. The stadium was built in 1934, and city leaders have been working hard to attract an affiliated minor league baseball team to our city. while planning to build a new baseball stadium near the Arkansas River. Cake TV says that yesterday, city spokesperson Ken Evans told the Wichita Business Journal that city leaders and the Wingnuts agree that stadium improvements would not be cost-effective, but Evans stopped short of saying that the bulldozers were headed for Lawrence Dumont anytime soon. So we'll wait and see.
We need to get a professional baseball team here. That's what we need. It can be called the Hoosier Daddies.
The Hoosier. I see what you did
there. There we go.
Yeah, or the Stackline Strikers.
Ooh, there you go.
Well, we could have a lot of fun with this.
There we go.
Okay. Newton police, as you alluded to, took into custody a 24-year-old man Tuesday night after he was found attempting to have sex with his car.
You know, a lot of guys.
Let me finish the story. The suspect was unresponsive to commands from officers when they told him, "Don't do that.
You're in the moment. You just don't respond to a lot.
Stop doing what you're doing."
Stop that. No.
And the man was oblivious to them.
Of course.
So they ended up tasing him. He was so impaired. The man was so impaired, and that's where you say, how impaired
was he?
They ended up taking him to an emergency room instead of the jail. Blood alcohol content, 0.35. Where's the applause
Where's
button?
the done? Yeah, well done on that one.
Kudos, Mr. Sex with a Vehicle guy from Harvey County.
Now, here's 2 points that I got to take away from that. Number one, a lot of guys, that try and, do the bar hookups and get really drunk at night doing something stupid, they wake up in the morning with the remorse of, when you wake up and see who's laying next to you sometimes, you're just like, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that.
That's called coyote ugly. When, you gnaw your arm off rather than wake her up.
So this takes that to a whole new level. Second off, being tased while you're in the middle of that type of activity brings a whole nother jolt of life, a whole jolt of into your sex life. I mean, that really electrifies things in the bedroom.
Oh, my land sakes. Now, here's the deal on this thing. Dude's name is eventually going to come out,
right?
Sure. Dude's name is eventually going to... Oh, you're the guy that... Oh, yeah. Tailpipe Tommy. Yes, we remember you.
There we go.
Yes, Exhaust Ernie. Yeah.
Well done.
So, anyway, yeah, his name's going to come out, and it's going to probably be hard to get a date.
Well, probably. I mean, once you go with a car, you can't go back.
You think maybe he'll hook up with a chick named Mercedes?
That's what I'm wondering. That's what I'm wondering.
Okay.
Or he's going to upgrade to trucks.
Well,
then he'll just really upgrade to
or he may bring the Kenny Chesney song to life.
See, there you go.
Do you think my tractor's sexy? So, anyway, speaking of farming, Kansas farmers expected to bring in the smallest winter wheat harvest in nearly 3 decades. That amid an ongoing drought. Weather conditions have stunted fields across the state. This past week was the Wheat Quality Council's Winter Wheat Tour, and they're estimating that Kansas growers will likely harvest about 243.3 million bushels this season. That's based on conditions that they observed while they inspected crops in about 644 fields over the 3-day tour this week. The woman accused in last year's attacking and decapitating of 63-year-old Mickey Davis in Wichita was back in court yesterday for a competency hearing. Rachel Hilliard is charged with first-degree murder. Her attorney requested more time, arguing that she was still not competent to stand trial. DA Mark Bennett argued that Hilliard was never found incompetent by a court. So,
there you go.
The judge has scheduled a new court date for June 14th when they'll make a decision on whether or not she matches the lines of competency. So there it is.
There it is. Well,
lots of news. We ran out of music, so I'll shut up.
Well, that's all right. That's good stuff right there.
And that's the news.
At least we now know that you have a new jolt in your love life sometimes, and that's a way to do it. I wonder how many people are going to be trying to bring a taser into their love life from now on.
Well, and that's...
Hey, honey! How'd that feel? Yeah. I see it happening now.
That's
There's
not
going to be a
even-
spike in tasers being bought around the city now.
That's not even one of those deals where nobody's going to say, "Yeah, I've done that." There's nobody. Nobody's
Been there
gonna-
before.
There's not even a support group for this. Okay.
One of the few guys that got some tail light last night. That one came through. That's a good one on social media there. Well done on that one. Yeah, I got some tail light last night.
You see the bumper on that one?
Oh, man. See? This is going to be a never-ending joke now. This is going to go on. All right, I tell you what. I have a copy of... being the last day of the legislative session, what was really the matter with the Kansas tax plan? I got one more copy of this left, and you can call in and give me a clean but yet fun sex joke when it comes to this guy with the car. If you can give me a clean one that's radio approved, FCC approved, that is yet still hysterical, I will give you a copy of what was really the matter with the Kansas tax plan, the undoing of a good idea, which, by the way, they probably need to read since we just did the same damn thing this session as we just did in 2012.
Huh.
We probably need to revisit this.
You think
a little
anybody's going to call in? Our
I think
listeners
so.
are pretty conservative, you know.
Oh, come on! I'm getting Facebook messages of these jokes, but they just they got to call in and do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we're here. It's
we're here.
7218255. Get us while we're live here.
Give me
now.
a buzz, and I'll give you a copy of the book. I'm getting some fantastic
Can
ones.
you give me an example of a Facebook?
Well, the one I got
comment?
some tail
Is
light
it-
last night.
Okay.
You know,
You stole that.
I stole it. That was on Facebook. That was fantastic
Okay.
right there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, that's
Good
decent.
stuff.
That's
Talking
decent.
about a little bit of news, and actually being the news guy, you could probably chime into this one a little bit too, as I was going to get to this. But this story coming out of Kansas City, officer shoots and kills man during a drug arrest confrontation. And I know that some people are probably going to call in and try and talk about, again, police brutality and that sort of thing. When it comes to the evilness of terrible cops. But according to Cake TV this morning, there is the new legislation that Governor Collier may sign about the body cams for law officers that would be made public within 20 days if the family requests them to be so.
I think that's a good idea.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. It's going to reinforce, I would say, accountability is what it
True.
comes down to.
But to
I
the
don't
whole public
envy-
or just to the family?
Well-
See, I'm not a fan of the whole thing being released to the entire public because the public already, they don't necessarily, I mean, as you can see with all these other cases about the cops and law enforcement and police brutality and all these other things, that a lot of people come to their judgment before they even hear it. I like it being known to the courts during the hearings if there's a trial or towards the family that may be involved in it, but I don't like the body cams necessarily being released to the entire public.
Well, and therein lies a conundrum. I mean...
Because just like the example of the swatting issue that happened in December last year,
right.
And the individuals that despise cops so much that if they knew who it was and they saw the body cam themselves as well,
they won't. How can they?
Well, unless the name's being thrown out there or it's mentioned in the
they can bleep
in the
that
audio
out.
or something.
They can.
I don't know.
Redact that. You got a call.
We do have a caller. Let's go with the phones here. 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Lois.
Lois, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Good. We're living the dream. What you got?
Well, I was just saying, that story just sounds so exhausting.
I like that.
was good.
That's exhausting. I
That
like
was
that one.
good.
I like that. Lois, hang on the line here. We'll get your info and we'll get you a copy of the book. What was really the matter with the Kansas tax plan? I like that one. That was pretty exhausting last night.
You got another one?
I got another one. Let's go
Okay.
back to the phones here,
Okay.
shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
James,
James, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. What you got for us?
I want to know, was that car made by or manufactured by the year 2000?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Why do you ask?
Is it 18 and was it consensual?
I like that. I like
Good
that.
job,
James, I
James.
tell you what, I got a copy of the book Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. You want a copy of that one?
Yes, I do.
Hey, very good.
Hold
Stay on
the
the line
line,
here.
hold the
We'll
line.
get you a copy of that. There we go. Just 2 books right there.
Now,
Those
see,
are good.
that was easy.
Right there. Bam.
That was
Making
easy.
it happen. See,
Good
we're dirty
stuff.
yet clean all at the same time. Got to take a break. 47 minutes past the hour. This is the Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2. It goes by way too fast. Appreciate all the calls. Congrats to James and Lois winning a couple books this morning. We'll have some more giveaways probably later on. Well done. Very clever. I dig it. I enjoy it. We got to live life a little bit, right? Have a little fun. Come on! 316-721-8255. It's open lines to you for a little bit. Coming up in hour number 3, Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio. He'll be joining us for the 8 o'clock hour for a bit, as today is the kickoff of the annual NRA convention down in Dallas, Texas. We were potentially going to have that up here in Kansas. At least it was offered. But it's happening down in Dallas. It kicks off today. President Trump, Vice President Mike Pence will all be speaking there, among many others. So we'll talk about that and more with Mark Walters with Armed American Radio. 316-721-8255. I do want to just finish off, by the way, this conversation, the legislation that is Hat Tip to Cake TV on this one. Some other news coming out of the session as we wrap up for the final day of the legislative session, the body cams for police officers. And the legislation would say that if the family requests the body cam to be released, the video of the body cam being released to the public, it has to be done so within 20 days, as opposed to right now with current legislation to where it is up to the jurisdiction of the local law enforcement agency for them to choose whether they actually want to release it or not. So that would change that a little bit. Good, better, and different. I'd love to get your thoughts on that one. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones, shall we? Let's line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Am I number 1?
You're line number 1. What's happening, sir?
Okay. Hey, this is Mike here in Wichita.
Mike, how are you?
Well, I'm doing very well this morning. Unfortunately, I'm headed to work. But anyway, I was just your police brutality deal.
Yes.
I had my dad. Now I'm pushing 65, so I had my dad tell me something when I started driving. He says the police officer pulls you over, especially at night. You roll down your window, you turn on your dome lights, you put your hand in your steering wheel, and you say, "Yes, sir."
Sure.
And as a young man, I had a couple encounters because I had a fast car, but I never, ever, ever had a police officer, other than kind of chew me out for driving stupid, ever threaten me, because I didn't jump out of the car and start screaming at him and telling him all my rights. I didn't put my hands, in my pockets, and it just amazes me. Police officer is pretty much always on defense.
Sure.
And if you do something, especially if you confront a police officer with a weapon, you just signed your death warrant. I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, anybody that's stupid enough to confront a police officer with a weapon, well, I guess that's why they're stupid. But anyway, it just amazes me that you get so many people that are, all about their rights, all about, standing against the man, and all this stuff. And it just, if people would just comply and,
well, and we actually just showed respect. I mean, if we actually, this goes more than just in the police brutality or the cops issue, but just the all around in society. If we just showed each other respect again, instead of actually worrying about where your rights start and my rights start and your rights end and my rights, whatever, and we just showed everybody courtesy and respect, we probably would be able to get rid of 99% of these issues.
Right. Well, and common courtesy, like common sense, is just almost non-existent.
Yeah.
And, that's just something that, we need to return to. And, and I've got grandkids, and we try to, help the parents teach them, just normal civil actions, and courtesy and respect and that type of thing.
Sure.
And it's just amazing how that has disappeared.
It really is. I mean, do we have bad apples in there? I'm sure we do somewhere, and because you're right, they happen everywhere. But that doesn't mean
it doesn't matter what you do.
Exactly. But like you said, I mean, you had the fast car, and you get pulled over a few times with the cop getting angry at you, but it never got out of control. You never had a fast movement towards your waistline. You never tried to pull something out of your pocket when your cop told you to stand still. You never tried to get out of your car to berate them. And guess what? You walked away with maybe a speeding ticket, but other than that, with nothing else of harm in any way, shape, or form.
That's like in junior high. I never got a swat I didn't deserve.
Right.
But that's a whole nother story. But, Anyway, well, have a great day.
Hey,
Appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that, Mike. And you have a great weekend. Enjoy the Friday. Enjoy the beautiful warm weather. It's going to be nice out there. Thank you so much for that. 316-721-825. You're right. I mean, we come down to the lack of common courtesy, the lack of respect, the lack of decency for just another human being, because it's all about, I have rights and you can't tell me. Wait a second. What? Let's just respect one another. When do we get to so isolated that you're so concerned and worried about your rights end and my rights begin and yada, yada, yada? Let's just have common courtesy for one another. Then we wouldn't have to worry about this. That would solve a lot of crime issues as well, because you wouldn't be thinking that you own or you deserve the private property of somebody else. Then we wouldn't have to worry about that. But that's a whole other story, because that's not going to happen, unfortunately. We're never going to be able to end that. The only way to end that is for us to be able to defend ourselves and have big enough guns where they want to second guess their wanting or their motive to actually try and do that, which we'll talk about now in number 3, as we have Mark Walters from Armed American Radio joining us, because we need to defend that, and that's kind of important, and we like to talk about it. So we'll do that coming up, hour number 3 right around the corner. This is your show. As always, it's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
Why would we give the ability for the Supreme Court to come back and say it's not adequate enough and be able to consume as much of the budget as they possibly want to for education, and then for everybody else to get the scraps and the leftovers? Why have we not focused on the Kansas Supreme Court's constitutional amendment to limit the power of the Supreme Court? Why is that not the number one priority and the only priority that we've had when it comes to educational finance?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
I'm talking about. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome into it. It is a Friday. Great to have you along today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. It is a free-for-all Friday. Let's do it. Meaning whatever's on your mind, it's up to you to run the show today. Bothering you, troubling you, it does not matter. Let's have a little fun and chat a little bit today. Let's do it. Come on. All right. 316-721-8255. Shoot me a message all over Facebook, facebook.com/1480KQAM. The Facebook live feed is up and rolling. Oh, we got another one on there. I got to bring Mark Walters into this. As you know, today is the annual convention, the kickoff of the annual convention for the NRA. Today is also the last day of the state legislative session for the state of Kansas. We've been talking about some of the bills there, and we'll get your thoughts on that. But Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, you can hear him live Sunday evening, 7 to 10. You can hear his daily program at 8 o'clock in the evening here on the KQAM airwaves, and he's back with us. Mark, what's happening, brother?
How you doing, man? Good morning.
Good morning to you. I got to bring you into this story, and it's funny because you even heard this story. I'm going to call him #Tailpipe Man. And the tailpipe guy. And we've been having a little fun with this morning with some of the jokes that have been out of this, because the law enforcement officer said that he was not responsive when they told him to stop, which I don't know what guy is responsive when he's in the heat of the moment. Then, of course, they tase him, which just brings an extra spice of electricity to his love life. And it takes a whole nother level to Coyote Ugly when you wake up in the morning and say, what did I do last night and who was I with?
Yeah, put that in your pipe and smoke it, huh?
Oh, and then we've had some great ones from the listeners. And here's one. Was the car at least 18 years old? See, it didn't. Oh. There you go. Or, it was being in the tailpipe, we had a caller. It was very exhausting.
Oh, an exhausting experience. Yeah.
Oh, exhausting experience. Or this one here that just came in. Was the car washed or have a wash me sign in the back because he may be hanging out with many dirty girls? There you go. We're just having too much fun with this, Mark.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. Well, I could have fun with it, too, but we're not on satellite radio, so.
Well, yeah, there we go. That is very true. It's got to keep that one a little bit clean. Mark.
Ban tailpipe.
Oh, there you go. See, there you go. I like it. I mean, I guess if you're going to, the tailpipe's the place to be. I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, it is the kickoff of the annual NRA convention. Usually you're out there. You're not out there this year, but this is
First
going to
time
be
in many, many years.
Yeah, this is going to be one heck of a rally, Mark. This is, I think, we're going to have, just like when Donald Trump got elected, with people excited about the NRA and the Second Amendment and the pro-Second Amendment legislation, there's going to be a lot of support for this one this year.
Yeah, it's going to be big. I've got a running annual bet with Crossbreed Holsters, with the boys over at Crossbreed. I've lost 5 years in a row, and I generally don't lose 5 years in a row of anything. But I have in this because I'm always overly optimistic on the crowd size. So we have a bet. We picked the crowd size, and then by Monday we found out exactly what the exact figure is. And I'm usually, the last 5 years I've been down. So I'm into them for 5 bottles of bourbon.
Ooh. So
we keep rolling it every year. This year I upped it from about, last year I said 90,000, and it was 86 and change.
Okay.
This year I said 95,000, and Crossbreed, actually, they always pick a lower number. That's why they've won. In this case, they went up to 100. So they believe it's going to be at 100,000, and I do too. I tend to agree with that. I think in today's political climate, being that it's at the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Center in downtown Dallas, a lot of gun lovers and a lot of angry gun lovers who are sick and tired of being called murderers by a handful of teenagers who march on Washington to take away their own rights. I think that's going to draw a crowd out of Texas, a Texas-sized crowd, if you will. I would not be surprised at all. Maybe wrong. It's been hovering around 86,000. It's been a record year every year. This one's going to be bigger, and if it's going to be a bigger record, it's going to be pushing up over 90.
Sure.
So we'll see, but it's going to be a very raucous event. You've got the vice president and the president both speaking at the event, and of course the AP, CBS News, ABC News, and the rest of them all lying because a bunch of kids called the NRA hypocrites for not allowing guns or banning guns while the president and the vice president were speaking. Of course, those kids should probably go back to school and learn a little bit more about Secret Service protection of the president, because it's the Secret Service that makes that call, not the NRA. But why waste the opportunity to disparage the NRA, put it back, because we know the press is going to say whatever we want them to say.
Exactly.
Until they got called out and they had to retract those headlines and print the truth. So it's funny how freedom works sometimes.
Oh, it's crazy how that works. No, I completely agree with you. I think we're going to have a massive turnout. I mean, we've seen the excitement here just in the state of Kansas with the rally that we had a couple of weeks ago with the KSRA convention that we had, and a great turnout for that one. People are energized, they're excited, and they're really wanting to support the Second Amendment, because I think we got a little relaxed when President Trump got into office, and you've talked about this before as well, with Barack Obama's not in anymore. We're not going to have to worry about gun regulations coming through, so we can actually take a breath. Now it's starting to hype up again after all these shootings, and again, we go back on the defensive. We rise back up and say, okay, wait a second, the fight's not over yet. I guess we better start making our voice heard again.
Yeah, and you're starting to, you're hearing kids say, some of them whose name I don't even want to utter because their 25 minutes of fame should be over by now. But, talk about how we've changed this debate. Well, let's analyze that statement for a moment. No, you haven't. There is no debate.
Sure.
If you knew anything about your history, you knew that debate ended December 15th, 1791, when the Bill of Rights was ratified. The debate's already been had. It's been over. The Second Amendment exists. Too bad for you. There is no debate, number one. Number two, we've changed the political climate has changed, they say. Well, no, it hasn't. Democrats still hate your guns, and Republicans, generally speaking, conservatives, love their guns. Nothing's changed there.
Sure.
The only thing that's changed is that the media is getting louder. And when just because the media gets louder doesn't mean something's changed. America has not changed overnight. 100 million gun owners haven't gone, oh, shucks, I'm over my guns. You see, it's just the media portrayal. It's the media narrative that we have to cut through. We have to cut through the fog of that and fight like hell every single day to cut through that fog. The media in this country, as you know, been listening to me almost proudly now on the air now near 10 years. We're in our 10th year. But we've been talking about this for 10 years, how dangerous this propaganda-driven media is in today's day and age, particularly when you have so many sources of it. It's very dangerous.
Here's the big question. How many protesters do you think are going to show up this weekend?
I think you'll have more this year than you had in previous years, but they will be dwarfed by 100,000 law-abiding citizens walking into that convention hall every day. And they get laughed at every time they walk by.
Sure.
I can tell you in years past, you see little groups of 8 to 10 protesters holding up a dopey little sign with that say, it has NRA, no NRA, and then it's got blood dripping off the NRA, and they stand there and hold the sign, while 50,000 families of all colors, of all socioeconomic backgrounds, of all religions, file past them and ignore them. And the mainstream media, I remember seeing NBC with a cameraman on his knees pointing that camera up at that sign, giving the great shot, while ignoring 85,000 Americans that just walked by him of every color, walk of life in this country. It's fascinating. And they will make that 8 to 10 people look with one published photo like a massive protest, and they will ignore. If you think there's going to be 100,000 protesters, you're wrong.
Oh, sure. No, absolutely not. I mean, and I'm wondering if he who will not be named, the high school student, may show up and try and lead some of that rally as well. It'd be entertaining to watch.
He is trying. He's going to show up with Alyssa Milano. We can say it. David Hogg is supposedly showing up and working with Alyssa Milano.
Of course.
So, whatever good that's going to do.
Yeah, great. Well done. Pat on the head and congratulations. You got something to write for your book.
Hold up a big resist sign, Alyssa.
That's right. President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence will both be speaking at the rally this year, which I know is always going to be excitement as well. The question that I have, though, is now that we're looking at some of the legislation and we're supporting and really focusing on the Second Amendment rights and our gun rights in the country, the question is, where is national reciprocity and when are we finally going to get this thing done?
Look, I've had Grover Norquist on the show, who is intimately involved, been following this, has talked to Mitch McConnell about this, and and I take him at his word. He has told me on my airwaves, you've heard him say it on KQAM, that Mitch McConnell was and is going to move national reciprocity by the summer, sometime in June, he pinpointed. And he stood by that. The last time I had him on the program was just a few weeks ago. Now, mind you, it was pre-Parkland.
Sure.
But look, the Republicans have an election coming. All right, the Senate, I think we're okay, and the House looks a little bit dicey. But I think as long as the Democrats vocally choose to run on a gun control agenda, oh boy, bring it on. Love to see that. All right, I think that bodes very well for us when they choose to run on a gun grabber agenda, which it appears Nancy Pelosi wants them to do. And the mere thought of her face being on our news cameras, our news screens, flashed across every single day as, holding the gavel is going to drive a lot of conservatives to the polls as well, too. So I don't think this is a foregone conclusion by any stretch. Mm-hmm. But national reciprocity this would be a perfect time to move it. Mitch McConnell has said he was going to move it. Norquist has told me in no uncertain terms twice that it's going to be moving this summer, and I'm going to hold him to his word that I really do think it will move. This is the time to do it before there's any threat of that house flipping.
Well, and I guess better late than never, because, they were talking about doing it before the end of the year when it came to the same tax reform bill that Trump did by Christmas time last year, and we were talking about doing it at the same time, and we would have liked to have seen that, but then it was also being talked about being included into the omnibus bill about a month ago, and they ended up taking the Fix NICS portion out of that and including that into the omnibus, but they didn't put the state or the national reciprocity on there, which is concerning because the last time we had talked about this, really at about the beginning of the year, we were hoping that with the two together, even though we didn't care for the Fix NICS, that it would have been the compromise enough to be able to ram that through and actually get enough support to be able to make it happen.
Yeah, but the landscape changed a little bit after that, and to me and you, the landscape didn't change.
Sure.
To the swamp rats, it changed.
Sure.
Okay. Because Parkland makes no difference to me. It has nothing to do with national reciprocity. Nothing to do with national reciprocity. Bump stocks have nothing to do with national reciprocity. Fix NICS did only because the House put it together with the bill.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So the big debate was, should that even be in there at all? Gun Owners of America? Hell no, it shouldn't have been in there. Get it out of there. There should be no Fix NICS. And I'm in agreement with that. Fix NICS doesn't do anything but fix NICS, which is already there. It doesn't fix. You can't fix what you need to fix. What you need to fix.
Right.
You can't build another law upon another law upon another law. We can't make murder any more illegal than it is already.
Right.
And there was no look. The impetus for that bill, Fix NICS. If you go back and look at, he shouldn't have had that gun to begin with. Legitimately, he shouldn't have. Well, it was already a violation of the current law not to be reported to NICS.
Right.
So let's make it more illegal?
Yeah, apparently we make it more illegal, and we encourage the agencies to actually follow the law. And instead of just telling them they need to do so, we need to give them the carrot at the end of the day and say, well done, you did your job the way you're supposed to in the first place.
Right, here, a little financial carrot for you. We're going to compensate you and provide a little bit more funding to get you to do what you're already supposed to be doing.
Right. And that makes no sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't
It
make any
doesn't
sense
make
to
any
me
sense. And to people like us, what it does is it throws up an awful lot of red flags. It says, look, why are they trying to legislate? Why are they, here comes another infringement that affects only law-abiding people. Look, here's another example. Hillsborough County, Florida. Just last week, my hometown down in Tampa, Florida. The county commission voted to extend the wait period for 3 days, from 3 days to 5 days in Hillsborough County. Florida already has a 3-day wait. Now, if you have a Florida concealed carry permit, you don't wait for anything. You've already cleared your background checks.
Sure.
And most gun buyers have permits go in, there's no wait. But if you just decide one day, hey, look, my boyfriend is threatening my life, and I've never had a concealed carry permit, that wait just went from 3 to 5 days with no exception. Here's the thing. If the boyfriend already owns a gun, or if you already own a gun, do you have to, let's separate these into two arguments. First of all, that young lady has to now wait 2 more days to get a gun. Sure. That could be a death sentence, number one. Number two, what about state preemption? How can Hillsborough County preempt state law?
Sure.
Okay. Well, they can. There's been a ruling that they can preempt that law when it comes to waiting periods in the local communities. They can do that. How effective is that? Let's go back to the fixed NICS. How effective is it? A background check looks back. Virtually every mass killer we can name in the last 10 years has passed a background check.
Sure.
So is an additional 2 days going to do anything to stop it? Is fixing the NICS going to stop it? The answer to all of these questions is no. The only point that I'm trying to make is it only impacts you. It impacts me. It doesn't impact Pollock, who's going to shoot 50 people from the top of a building. It doesn't impact a lunatic. It never has. It never will. And it's not going to stop crime. And yet, here we go.
Here we go. It makes us just feel better.
Here we go again.
Yeah, it just makes us feel better in the end of the day. 21 minutes past the hour mark. You got a few more minutes to stick with us if we take a break?
I absolutely do.
Hey, very good. Let's take a break here. We'll get your thoughts and calls if you want to call in and ask a question as well. But Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, you can hear him this evening at 8 o'clock here on the KQAM airwaves. Also, the Sunday Monster broadcast from 7 to 10 o'clock at night right here on KQAM. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about the NRA convention, also some of the legislation that we may see potentially happening very, very soon. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay tuned.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, 26 minutes past the hour. The day just keeps getting better. Making it happen today on a Friday, a free-for-all Friday. Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, hanging out with us for a bit longer. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. More jokes coming in on social media about hashtag tailpipe guy. Makes me happy. Mark, the question is, President Donald Trump earlier this year banned...
Wait, I want another tailpipe joke.
Another tailpipe joke. Oh, well, here you go. Let's find another one. Oh, yeah, was it a dirty car? Did dirty girl? Oh, I think we already said that one. Oh, here you go. If it was a big diesel truck, does that make him gay? I don't know. I mean, a big diesel truck.
I don't know about that one.
I don't know. I mean, the diesel truck's usually kind of the hefty, manly kind of thing to drive, and if he's with that, then maybe either it's a very... I don't know, because you always name your vehicle a feminine name, right? I mean...
I guess so, yeah.
But your truck, I don't know. Do you name your truck Hoss, or do you name it Susie? I don't know.
I don't know either.
So, I don't know. That could be either well done because you pick something nice and in high class, or that makes you questionable. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, if you're doing that with an automobile, at some point you're going to get tired.
There we go. There's another good one there. Oh, I love it. See, that's going to be the ongoing theme of the entire day. This is going to be a little absurd. Here's the question for you, Mark. Earlier this year, President Trump ended up talking about banning the bump stocks and anything that may turn a legal gun into a, what did he say, a machine gun.
Yeah, and anything.
Anything.
Did you hear what you just said?
Yeah, anything that could do that. What kind of response will he get with that with the NRA convention this week?
Look, Trump's going to get a raucous response at the NRA convention today. It's going to be today. He and Pence are speaking today. Because we know what the alternative was.
Mm-hmm.
The bump stock this is an interesting creature, this bump stock thing. Most Americans have never heard of a bump stock prior to Vegas.
Sure.
It had never been used in a crime that I can find, which is why Vermont had to ban it, and Florida had to ban it, and other states have moved to ban it because it's never been heard of before, and no one knew what it was, and it's never been used in a crime.
Sure.
But now that we know what it is, let's get rid of it. Even though nobody's ever harmed anybody with it before. But this guy did, so let's get rid of it.
Yeah, sure.
So that seems to be the good logic, right? So the National Rifle Association itself came out with that statement after Vegas, and they did it within days, which is unusual for the National Rifle Association, seemingly calling for more regulation of a bump stock.
Sure.
That was a green light. And I think we've discussed this before. Immediately that threw up a red flag to me that was a green light. It seemed to be, and here's the phrase that I coined on that, it looks like the bump stock, we're being told, Republican politicians are being told, hey, look, guys, go ahead and sacrifice the bump stock on the altar of gun control. We don't really care. It really doesn't matter to us. Nobody even knows what it is. If that's what you got to do, do it. Well, they did it. And then you got everybody screaming about another infringement. But the NRA opened themselves up to that one. If you go back and read that statement in full, I apologize, I don't have it in front of me.
No, you're right. I mean, yeah, the NRA came out and endorsed it and said that was fine. And I remember because there was the big discrepancy between the NRA endorsing that and supporting that, and then the KSR, the Kansas State Rifle Association, coming out and saying, yeah, no, we don't support that in any way, shape, or form because we don't want to ban objects like this. So this is completely ridiculous. We got to take a bottom of the hour break. You got time for one more segment with us?
I do, absolutely.
Hey, very good, very good. Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, going to be with us a little bit longer here. A lot to get to when it comes to the Second Amendment. We still have some legislation in the state of Kansas, by the way, still potentially going through. Is the last day of the session is today. Can we get it through? And we'll talk to Mark about this one when it comes to 18-year-olds being able to purchase a concealed carry permit, being able to purchase firearms, and where we're at throughout the rest of the country with that issue. We'll talk about that and more when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
To read the news,
I'm trying to warn everybody and nobody takes me cereal.
You're in the wrong place. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, 1480 AM and 1025 FM, KQAM.
Hey, what's happening? Welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, KQAM. Great to have you along today on a Friday, the Free-for-All Friday, rolling right along. Welcome aboard. Great to have you here. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, with us here for a little bit longer as we're talking about the NRA convention kicking off today down in Dallas, Texas, and some of the stuff that may happen with that. And oh, by the way, Mark, I got to ask you, with the liner with Riverside Cafe and with Inman Harvest Cafe that we have as sponsors as well, we have a lot of restaurants that enjoy them because they know I enjoy my food. Do you still do your recipes on your show as well? Like the daily recipe, you carry a gun and cook something?
I don't do
something?
them daily, but yeah, I picked up a new Lang barbecue smoker. From Lang Barbecues and had the thing delivered. It's if you know anything about these things, they're the Lamborghini of cookers, and you know all about this stuff in Kansas, okay? Good barbecue, man. Good barbecue has to come off a good cooker. These are reverse flow smokers, and I picked one of these things up because the grilling season for the average American is between Memorial Day and Labor Day. For me, it's year-round.
Sure.
But we're coming back in with the grilling while armed segments, yes. And I love to give out 3 of my favorite recipes that I get questions about all the time. So the answer to that is yeah, baby.
Yeah, and it's that time of year again for that, so that's pretty exciting. Let's shift gears a little bit. There is a piece of legislation. We got a caller on the line as well, and we'll get to in a second here. There is some legislation that's still floating around the Kansas legislature today. Today's the last day of it. They finish up tomorrow officially, and one of them that still has been floating there for a little bit but hasn't really gone anywhere is lowering the age to be able to get a concealed carry permit to the age of 18 and be able to purchase the firearms. And I know that some states are going higher, some states are going lower. I remember Maryland, where the shooting happened at the school with the high school kid that was upset with his girlfriend or something and went in and shot. He was 17, 18 years old. That was a state. where you have to be 21 to purchase a firearm. So how we got that one, I don't know. Again, that's with the whole NICS issue, where guess what? We already had the law in place. It didn't work, but yet we want to put more laws on the books to try and fix
failed.
this.
That didn't work?
It's shocker. Crazy, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm surprised that not everybody follows the laws.
Yeah. So where are we with the rest of the nation when it comes to the age limit of how old you have to be in order to purchase firearms?
I can only tell you that Trump, I think Trump threw a gigantic, and I like the analogy, the rope-a-dope.
Okay.
To the Dems with that meeting. He did what he had to do from a political standpoint, and I love the fact that it was transparent. He invited the media in. We would have never, ever, ever seen anything like that with Barack Obama.
Sure.
He would have huddled behind closed doors, and just like the gun grabber states, they would have passed some legislation in the dead of night, or tried to anyway. Sure. Trump put the cameras right out there, and he said, look, I'm open to hearing anything. And that's what he said. Hey, throw it at me. Give it to me. Let me see. Let's do this. Let's try this. Boom, boom, boom. When it comes down to the age deal, Trump is on record of saying there's not really any appetite for that. I don't think you're going to see any move on that at the federal level, period. Democrats take control of the House and Senate, you're going to see it in addition to impeachment by Trump.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between the two parties. And the Democrats openly hate your right to bear arms. I mean, this is not new news.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you have a former Supreme Court justice come out and say, this is how you repeal the Second Amendment, we need to put it on the ballot because we need to repeal this sucker. Their real agenda has finally been exposed because now we've known this all along, but now they're openly coming out and saying, yeah, we despise your right to carry a firearm so much that now we actually want to repeal the Second Amendment.
You will hear me talking about today a USA Today piece that I'm going to focus on for most of the program, unless I get a surprise call from the NRA floor like I did yesterday. But it's from the USA Today, and it was out on May 3rd, just yesterday. Ban assault weapons, buy them back, go after resistors. That's an ex-prosecutor talking to Congress. Of course, the guy's name is Eric Swalwell, and he's from, gasp, he's a Democrat from San Francisco.
Oh, shocker
but
right
here's
there.
what he wants us to do. He wants us to ban them, go after them, buy them back. Buy them back. I don't remember buying them from them, so I don't know how they can buy them back from me in the first place.
Sure.
But the fact of the matter is he wants to use that Democrat term, that gun grabber term, buyback. We're banning these things. We're going to buy them back. We're going to give you $150 for your gun. Oh, thanks for that. And if you don't, we're going to come after you. Come after resistors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's calling for open civil war in America.
Sure.
If that happens, that will be the basis that the next civil war will be fought over that.
Sure. I mean, that's what
this is very dangerous language, incredibly dangerous language. But they're out there openly saying it now, and we predicted it after Parkland.
Sure. It's finally gotten to that point because we see after every shooting, surprisingly, not surprisingly, is that every time a shooting happens, while they try and advocate and scream for gun control, you actually see a spike in guns, especially in that community because people realize that it could happen to them. They realize the realization that it's not something that just happens on the news or a faraway land, but it happens in their own backyard, and they get a little concerned about it. I mean, we saw the LGBTQ community rise up and start purchasing firearms left and right after the club shooting down in Florida a few years ago.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Exactly.
We work closely with the Pink Pistols. We helped start a group down in Florida. Chad Hendricks, a good friend of mine.
Right.
Started a Pink Pistols down in West Central Florida, in Fort Myers. Good. That's what's supposed to happen. That's the Second Amendment in action. That's everybody, no matter who they are, exercising their right to bear arms. I love that. Listen, there was a study done, as you know, by Gary Kleck and his partner Gertz back in the early to mid-1990s that found at the University of Florida that found 2.5 million DGUs, defensive gun uses, annually per year on average, of which 95% of those 2.5 million DGUs, a shot was never fired. I became one of those statistics. I pulled a firearm on two people, never fired a shot. The gun did its job just by being visible.
Right.
And saved my butt. And some other woman, and the criminals went home. We all went home alive because I had a gun that day.
Exactly.
Okay? Well, the CDC, Barack Obama wanted to commission the CDC, and they did commission the CDC. He wanted to anyway. The Republicans stopped him for using federal taxpayer dollars to commission gun control studies. But the CDC did it over 20 years ago on their own, and that results of that survey didn't quite mesh with what they wanted, so they buried it. This is one of the most important stories nobody's talking about right now. Gary Kleck found it by accident when he was looking for information from CDC on another topic, found it, unmasked it, it's now out. The CDC confirmed 2 2.46 million defensive gun uses annually and buried the survey and buried the study because they didn't want it to come out because it didn't fit their agenda.
Sure.
In fact, it exploded their agenda. Now it's out. Okay? So do you see CBS or NBC or CNN or MSDNC or ABC talking about this?
There's never going to be a single media source that reports that study.
Not one time, but the information's out, and Gary Kleck is getting some traction on it. The conservative media is aware of it. Fox has reported it, so it is getting exposure. But it's incredibly important that you talk about it, that I talk about it, that other people find out where to go to get this information. So, that's why shows like these are so vital and so important, because the media, like you said, will never touch this.
Exactly. 316-721-8255. We do have a caller on the line. Let's go to them here. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Ron.
Ron, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm a life member of the NRA, and I thank Mark for all he does. And
thank you, Ron.
Big thing right now is this deal going on with Cuomo up there in New York.
Good point.
Where he, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see the NRA set up lending institutions in every Second Amendment unfriendly state in this country, and you got to be an NRA member in order to be a part of that lending institution. And the second thing is that we need to back Hornaday big time and get all these other ammo businesses and gun business to say, hey, you're unfriendly to our Second Amendment, so guess what? We're not going to sell you any more ammunition to any agency in your state.
Oh, that's a great point.
That's Ron. Thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for calling, and thanks for the kind words. Andy, do I have a moment to answer?
Yeah, go
Ron?
for it. Yeah, respond, please.
Let me explain what Ron is talking about. He may have heard it discussed on my show just yesterday, but New York State Governor Cuomo is vehemently anti-gun. They passed the SAFE Act in the middle of the night. Anything he can do to come after your right to bear arms, he's going to do. Well, he asked state regulators in the financial communities and the insurance communities to talk to the financial and insurance businesses in New York State and warn them about doing business with the National Rifle Association and threatened them from doing business with the NRA at all. They pulled the Kerry Guard, it pulled their insurance out. The state fined the Kerry Guard company that was underwriting the self-defense insurance from the National Rifle Association $7 million, and they've asked financial institutions not to do business with the NRA. This is a governor asking lawful businesses in his state to not do business with other lawful businesses.
Right.
Hornady came out, and so the president of Hornady, the founder of Hornady, stepped up and said, that's it, enough. We are no longer going to sell our products, which is our ammunition. Hornady is one of the top 3 manufacturers of ammo for law enforcement around the world. We are no longer selling to any New York State agency. Hurrah for Hornady.
Sure.
And what Ron is talking about is extending that. Why isn't everybody supporting Hornady on that? Remington should be supporting on Winchester. Everybody say to New York, that's it, we're done with you. No more guns for you, no more parts for you, no more accessories for you, no more ammo from you. No, this is a free market. Our companies don't have to sell or bid on any project. And if the firearms community would pull together and make that statement, here's my motto to New York. Buy it or build it yourself, pal. Make it on your own. Goodbye. And Ron, that's a great point, and thanks for bringing that up.
I really love that. Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio. We got to take a break in just about a minute left here or so, but I'm really excited. I'm sure you're going to be talking about this with your monster broadcast on Sunday when it comes to the NRA convention. Yes. President Trump, Vice President Pence, the big turnout. I'd have to agree with you. I guess we're going to see hopefully between 90 to 100,000 people out there. I think it's going to be a blast.
I think your number is right. And hey, on that tailpipe, if you do that, you can always throw a rod or something too. You can do some harm to your automobile. So, all right.
Well, that is very true. We need to be very careful with that. Mark, we can hear him live every Sunday evening, along with the evenings here on KQAM at 8 o'clock during the week. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. And I got to give you the shout out. Happy birthday to you tomorrow.
Yeah, Cinco de Mayo. Somebody's always having a margarita on my birthday. I love it. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
There it is. And oh, by the way, I don't know if you watch Star Wars or not, but apparently today is May the 4th to be with you.
Ding, 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 if I had a bell.
There you go. I love it. Mark Walters, Armed American Radio right there. We'll take a break, wrapping up the show for today on a Friday. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
7 minutes to the top of the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today. It's been a heck of a lot of fun as we continue to roll right along, advancing conservatism on a daily basis, because that's just the way we roll, especially on a Free-for-All Friday. It's not just a free-for-all, but also a fried chicken Friday, brought to you by the Inman Harvest Cafe, 112 South Main Street in downtown Inman, just north of Hutch. You can call them 620-585-6925 or just go visit. Today is Fried Chicken Friday. You got the buffet from 11 to 1, at the big buffet from 5 to 8 o'clock tonight, and we can smell the fried chicken already. Katie back on the line with us here as you guys have been rocking with the breakfast this morning, and now you're getting ready for the big lunchtime specials. It's going to be a heck of a day today.
Yeah, and, we still got to cook the breakfast in addition to getting on the lunch buffet. It's kind of like, I like to talk about how it's kind of like, those reality shows where they give you a whole bunch of ingredients and say you have to make something with all this crazy stuff. And you have this very specific time limit that you have to do it in. Only with ours, you also throw in all these orders that people want, and special orders and allergies and all kinds of crazy stuff. It's kind of like those reality shows with a little dive bombing of actual customers thrown in there.
Sure. That's fantastic.
It's a lot of fun.
I love it. It keeps you on your toes all day long, which is really good. So what's on the agenda today other than the awesome fried chicken that we're going to be seeing all day today?
So the fried chicken, then we've got a pulled pork that I was working on. So it's got some onions and garlic and jalapenos. It had a squeeze of orange juice in there, and then it slow roasted all night, and then we've also got so that's in there, and then plus the roast beef for this evening. Now, the roast beef's only available in the evening. The pork will be out at lunchtime, so
very good.
I want to make sure everybody understands that. So there's lots and lots of good smells happening. Then we've got baked beans to go with that pork. We've got, she's making chicken enchiladas, which is a creamy, cheesy, delicious. It's not a red sauce, it's a white sauce, yummy. And then German lasagna. So this is a Harvest Cafe original, and it's got German sausage, sauerkraut, lasagna noodles, and then a homemade Alfredo sauce with the white mozzarella cheese. So
ooh, that sounds really good.
It's really good. If you like sauerkraut. Now, if you don't like sauerkraut, I think you should try it anyway. I really do, because it's not overpoweringly sauerkraut.
Well, that's why I don't want to try that, because I'm not a fan of sauerkraut at all, but it still sounds like something that you have to just at least experience and try.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely an experience. It's not, when you put it in your mouth, it's not like, that's sauerkraut,
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, right.
So, very good. So you have that.
And then, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So then from 5 to 8, of course, if you come, our buffet comes with pie. And I wanted to tell you that I put a picture of our bumbleberry pie on Facebook so you can see it, okay?
Yes.
Because I know you've never... Yeah, so you can see what it looks like. So that's the strawberries, blueberries, apples, rhubarb, and raspberries. And and it's my waitress is laughing at me because it's hard to say all that. You get kind of tongue-tied and twisted. So,
there's a lot on there. There's a lot there.
There's a lot of berries happening. But then besides that one, we've got coconut, peanut butter, banana cream. Then we'll also have a banana split, which is totally different than regular banana cream. Sour cream, raisin, apple, and custard. So,
that
I'm really
is a
tired.
heck of a time there. Yeah, I brought it up right now, the bumbleberry pie on the Inman Harvest Cafe Facebook page there. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that looks just heavenly right there. That's what I'm talking about.
It's kind of a purple color. It's really pretty.
Yeah, that is one that is definitely going to have to be experienced. And you can get the free slice of pie when you walk in from 5 to 8 o'clock tonight. And as you mentioned, every time you got to go in and grab your slice of pie before you sit down and before you actually get your food and everything, because that piece of pie may be gone. And that bumbleberry pie, that one's, I know, going to go like that because that one's pretty epic.
It's epic. You're right.
Yeah. So between the fried chicken and the roast beef and the cheese, the chicken enchilada with the cheese, because, well, just cheese, and with all the pies, that you guys are really going to have a heck of a time. And again, I want to remind everybody, too, last week you guys did have that big car show last weekend on Saturday with another fried chicken Saturday, and it sounds like that went really well as well.
It did. It was awesome. And, we had 176 entries. So tractors, we had everything. So, look forward to it next year. If you didn't make it down here this year, next year is going to be even bigger, I'm sure. The weather had a lot to do with it, but it was awesome. And if you're looking for something to do this weekend, I know it's a little bit of a drive, but tomorrow is our annual citywide garage sale day, and so the whole town gets out all their stuff and sells it to people.
Hey, that's a great way to spend the weekend. I know people that love doing their garage sailing, and that's the whole town. Yeah. It's going to be a town sale with
the whole town. And it's not very big, so you can walk the whole thing in one day and still see everything. And then come here for lunch because we'll have a burger special, and we have the nicest bathrooms in town.
There you go. There you go.
Need that.
It's the perfect time. I love it. Inman Harvest Cafe, 112 South Main Street in downtown Inman, just north of Hutch. Katie, you guys enjoy the weekend. Have fun with the garage sale. Have fun with Fried Chicken Friday. We'll check in with you again next week.
Thanks, Andy. We'll talk to you later.
Always a pleasure there. That's the Inman Harvest Cafe. That's it for us today. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday to kick off a brand new week. This is The Voice of Reason.